They say family is supposed to protect you. But nobody tells you what it feels like when your own blood tries to erase you in front of a crowd, because the night my father laughed and called my grandfather's final gift trash was the night he unknowingly signed his own death warrant. And yeah, this story starts at my wedding. Picture this: crystal chandeliers, champagne popping, 500 guests dressed like they stepped straight out of a magazine, and me, standing in white, shaking, because my grandfather, the only man who ever saw me, had just pressed something into my hand, an old passbook, yellowed, fragile, barely holding together like it had secrets stitched into its spine. He leaned in close and whispered, "Don't let anyone touch this, sweetheart." I didn't even get a chance to ask why. My father grabbed the microphone. You know the type: loud voice, fake confidence, billionaire energy with rented money. He held the passbook up between two fingers like it offended him. And then he said it: "Trash belongs with trash." The room exploded in laughter. Before I could react, before my brain could even process it, he dropped my grandfather's gift straight into a silver bucket filled with melting ice and champagne. Something inside me snapped. But I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't beg. I plunged my bare hand into that freezing bucket. Champagne soaked my wedding dress. Glass cut my skin. My fingers burned from the cold. But I grabbed those pages like my life depended on it. Because somehow I knew it did. I walked out of my own wedding without looking back. No music, no goodbye, no apology, just silence. 3 days later, I stood inside First National Bank in downtown Boston. Marble floors, whispers echoing, money that smelled old, like power that never sleeps. I held the passbook inside a plastic Ziploc bag. The pages were warped, champagne-stained, exactly like my father said, ruined. Or so everyone thought. My name is Alyssa. I'm 29. I'm a trauma nurse. And I've spent my entire life learning how to disappear. When doctors scream, I stay calm. When patients bleed, I hold steady. When people overlook me, I let them. Standing at that bank counter in a thrift store coat, I felt exposed. "I just need to check the balance," I said quietly. The teller barely looked at me. Typed the numbers, paused, blinked. Then her fingers froze mid-air. Her face went pale. "Mom, please wait here. Don't leave." She didn't hit an alarm. She didn't need to. Because within seconds, the bank manager came running. And behind him, a man in a custom suit who looked like he'd just seen a ghost. They weren't looking at my clothes. They were looking at me, like I didn't belong out here, like I belonged behind a locked door. "Miss Mercer," the man said quietly, guiding me toward a steel vault door. "We've been waiting for this account to be claimed for a very long time." And right as the door slammed shut behind me, I realized something terrifying. My grandfather hadn't given me trash. He'd given me a loaded weapon. The moment that vault door slammed shut behind me, I wasn't a grown woman in a bank anymore. I was 12 years old again. Small, quiet, and trapped in my father's house where silence was survival. The room smelled like old paper and dust. The kind of smell money carries when it's been hiding for decades. Leather chair. Steel walls. No windows. The bank director placed a thick file on the table, but didn't open it yet. Instead, he said something that made my chest tighten. "Before we proceed, I need to confirm something." I nodded, barely breathing. "Your grandfather, Samuel Mercer, was a very careful man." That name cracked something open. I'm on my knees on hardwood floors. A rag in my hand, my knuckles raw, bleeding. My father sits back in his leather chair, swirling scotch like he's watching a show. Because to him, this was theater. "You missed a spot, Alyssa," he said calmly. Not yelling. Never yelling. Yelling was for poor people. Cruelty, delivered softly. That was his style. My brother Hunter was stretched out on the couch, laughing at a video game, feet on the table I'd just polished. Girls clean. Boys conquer. That was the rule. Grandpa Samuel tried to help me up. That's when my father's voice turned into a knife. "Touch her and I'll put you in a state home so fast you won't even pack your meds." So I scrubbed. I scrubbed until my hands shook. Until my vision blurred. Until I learned the lesson he wanted burned into me. I only mattered if I endured. The vault door clanked open. I gasped. The present snapped back into place. I wasn't that kid anymore. I was sitting upright, clean hands, steady breath, and the man across from me looked respectful. The director opened the file. Your grandfather didn't just open a savings account, he said. In 1982, he established a Totten Trust. I didn't understand the words yet, so he kept going. He invested early. Apple. Microsoft. Before most people believed in them. My pulse started pounding. He reinvested every dividend. Never touched a dollar. Page after page flipped. 40 years of silence. 40 years of patience. Then he turned the document toward me. The current value of the trust, legally payable to you, is $12,400,000. The number didn't feel real, it just sat there. Heavy. Absolute. No, 12,400,000. I thought about the champagne bucket, about my father laughing, about him calling this trash. He'd held $12 million in his hand and thrown it away without opening the cover. Is anyone else listed? I asked. My voice didn't shake. Years of trauma nursing trained me for moments like this. No, the director said. Just you. It's entirely yours. I touched the ruined passbook. Those pages weren't just paper. They were proof. Proof that someone had seen me, believed in me, prepared for the day I'd need armor. And in that moment, I understood something dangerous. This wasn't money. This was leverage. This was truth. This was the one thing my father never expected me to have. Power. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't running anymore. I was aiming. Cracking. Here's the thing about monsters. They look invincible, right up until you see the cracks. And once you see them, you can never unsee them. When I walked into our apartment that night, the lights were low. Not romantic. Strategic. Luke was hunched over his laptop at the kitchen island, surrounded by printed spreadsheets like a war room. He didn't look up. That's how I knew it was bad. Luke isn't just smart. He's surgical. A data analyst who specializes in forensic architecture. The kind of guy companies hire when someone's lying and they need proof. Sit down, he said. His voice was flat, controlled, never good. He turned the screen toward me. I expected wealth. I expected endless green numbers. The empire my father bragged about at every gala, every charity dinner, every family gathering. Instead, red everywhere. Losses stacked on losses. It's not an empire, Luke said. It's a Ponzi scheme held together by ego and bridge loans. My stomach dropped. The Newport mansion, he continued. Foreclosure started 3 weeks ago. I stared at the screen. The family trust he claims to manage. Luke clicked another file. It's empty. Empty. The word echoed. He's been cycling the same 50 grand through 6 shell accounts to fake liquidity. Another pause. Then the kill shot. And the IRS. They're already sniffing around. He got a notice of deficiency last month. The man who humiliated me in public was drowning. Not struggling. Drowning. He didn't want money for power. He needed it to survive. To stay out of prison. And that's when my phone rang. Dad? I put it on speaker. Luke stopped typing. Alyssa. My father said, like nothing had happened. No apology. No shame. I've been thinking about that little shack your grandfather left you. The cottage. What about it? I asked. I'm going to do you a favor, he said smoothly. I can sell it fast. Invest the money into the family business so you actually see a return. He laughed softly. You're a nurse, honey. You don't understand property taxes or maintenance. There it was. The condescension. The control. The lie. I'm not selling, I said. Silence. Then the mask came off. That old man was mentally incompetent. He snarled. I have witnesses ready to say you manipulated a senile geriatric. My hands clenched. If you don't sign by Friday, he continued, I'll sue you for elder abuse. I'll drag you through probate until you're bankrupt. Then, quieter. You're out of your depth. I understood perfectly. He wasn't protecting me. He was hunting for assets. Any asset he could grab, sell, and pour into his collapsing lie. I understand, I said. Good, he replied. I'll have the papers sent. The line went dead. Luke looked at me, and instead of fear, he smiled. A sharp, cold smile. He's desperate, Luke said. And desperate men make mistakes. That's when I realized something terrifying and beautiful. My father thought he was bullying a powerless daughter. He didn't know. He'd just handed us the blueprint to destroy him. Power doesn't always come from strength. Sometimes, it comes from letting someone believe you don't have any. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't call him back right away. Not because I was scared, because silence makes desperation rot from the inside. For 24 hours, I let him sit with it, wondering, calculating, panicking. Luke and I didn't hire a lawyer to fight him. We hired a graphic designer. We built documents that looked perfect. Same font. Same legal language, same formatting he'd seen 1,000 times. Transfer authorizations, trust paperwork, everything he expected. Except the fine print, because the fine print didn't transfer money. It transferred liability. When I finally called him, I didn't sound like the woman who walked out of a bank vault with $12 million. I summoned the girl on the hardwood floor. "Dada," I whispered. I let my voice shake. "I'm sorry I hung up. I didn't know what to do." His response was immediate. "You should be," he snapped. But the edge was gone. He was listening. "It's not just the cottage," I said softly. "I went to the bank." Silence. The passbook wasn't empty. I could almost hear his pulse through the phone. "How much?" he asked. The greed slipped out naked. "About 12 million, I choked. Then I added the lie. "But Dad," the bank manager started talking about audits and taxes. "I think the IRS is going to take half of it." I sniffed. Let fear creep in. I don't know how to hide it. His voice changed instantly. Not angry. Comforting. Chilling. "Listen to me carefully, Alyssa," he said. "Don't sign anything. Don't talk to lawyers. Here it comes. Bring the paperwork to me. I can shelter it under the family trust." I closed my eyes. "We'll classify it as a pre-existing asset. I'll make the tax liability disappear." Then the line he'd used my entire life. "I'm doing this to protect you." Protect me? No. He wanted to swallow my inheritance whole to plug his sinking ship. "Can we do it tonight?" I asked. Too eager, on purpose. "No," he said too fast. "I have the Man of the Year gala this Saturday in Boston." Of course he did. "Bring the documents there. We'll sign everything in the VIP suite before the speeches." He paused, savoring it. "I'll announce the expansion of the family fund. It'll look legitimate." He wanted an audience. He always did. "Okay," I whispered. "Thank you, Dad. That's what fathers are for," he said. The call ended. Luke looked at me. "He took it," I said. Already, the printer behind him was humming. The real documents. The ones that would end everything. My father thought he was reeling in a clueless daughter. What he didn't know was that he just invited the executioner to his own party. The funny thing about public stages, they make men like my father feel untouchable. Spotlights. Applause. Power borrowed from a room full of witnesses. That night, the stage didn't protect him. It exposed him. The Man of the Year charity gala was held at the Fairmont Copley Plaza. Crystal chandeliers dripping light, old money suits, politicians smiling like predators who learn manners. This was my father's kingdom. I arrived at 7:55 p.m. not late, strategic, and I wasn't wearing the beige, forgettable dresses he preferred. I wore red. Structured. Sharp. The kind of dress that doesn't ask permission. Heads turned as I walked through the room, not around it. For the first time in my life, I took up space. I spotted my brother Hunter at the bar. Laughing too loud, 3 drinks deep. Still playing Prince in a collapsing castle. He didn't see me. He never did. My father stood near the stage, flanked by 2 senators, glowing. That was the look. The look of a man who thought he'd just pulled off the heist of the century. When he saw me, his smile stayed in place. But his eyes tightened. He met me near the stage steps. "You're late," he hissed through his teeth, smiling for the cameras. "Do you have it?" "I have it," I said. I handed him the blue leather folder. He grabbed it like it might disappear. "Greed has gravity. Is it all there?" he asked. "All of it," I replied calmly. "The authorizations, the trust control, the full 12 million. I leaned closer. "You just need to sign as sole trustee." He opened the folder. Did he read it? No, he never read anything that came from me. He saw what he wanted to see. A signature line. The title read Affidavit of Historical Management and Sole Liability. A smarter man would have paused. A smarter man would have asked why the dates went back 20 years. But my father wasn't smart. He was entitled. He pulled out his Montblanc pen. "You did the right thing, Alyssa," he said, signing with a flourish. Then he handed it back like it was nothing. "Go sit in the back," he ordered. "I have an announcement to make." I didn't go to the back. I stepped aside, photographed the signature page, and hit send. 3 miles away, Luke received it. He attached it to the whistleblower complaint we'd finalized days earlier, and uploaded it to the DOJ's secure portal. My father stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced proudly, "tonight, we launch a historic expansion of the Mercer Family Foundation." Applause. A $12 million investment in this city's future. He was confessing, out loud, in front of 500 people. My phone buzzed. Iras Kanafaram and Rasivid. Then the massive LED screen behind him flickered. The foundation logo vanished, replaced by a Department of Justice seal. Stamped in red Federal Assistizur im Progress. The room went dead silent. And my father's smile, finally cracked, turned into sirens. You can hear the exact moment a powerful man realizes he's finished. It's not loud, it's the sound of a room holding its breath, while his world collapses in silence. The applause didn't fade, it died. 1 second the room was frozen in confusion. The next, panic rippled like electricity through silk gowns and tailored suits. My father turned slowly toward the screen, confused, not afraid. Confusion was his tell. He'd spent his whole life believing the rules bent for him. This reality didn't fit his script. He laughed. Actually laughed. "This is some kind of mistake," he said into the microphone. The words echoed too long, too hollow. Then the ballroom doors burst open. 6 men in dark suits flooded the aisle. IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Real badges, real authority, no smiles. "Richard Mercer," the lead agent said, "step away from the podium." My father tightened his grip on the microphone. "Do you know who I am?" he snapped. "We do," the agent replied calmly. "You're the sole trustee who signed an affidavit accepting responsibility for 20 years of unreported offshore accounts." The color drained from his face. He spun toward the crowd. Then he saw me. His eyes locked onto mine like an animal caught in a trap. "She tricked me," he shouted. "My daughter. Save it for the grand jury." The agent cut in. Handcuffs clicked shut. Metal on skin. Final. Cameras flashed. Phones came out. The man who built his entire identity on dominance was walked down the aisle in a rented tux. No speech, no audience. Just the sound of shoes on marble. I thought it was over. I was wrong. The VP suit door slammed behind me. Locked. I turned. Hunter stood there, sweating, purple-faced, unraveling. "You ruined everything," he hissed. "It was already ruined," I said. His eyes darted around the room. Then he grabbed a serrated steak knife from the catering tray. This wasn't strategy. This was panic. The moment the illusion of family collapses, and survival takes over. Luke stepped in front of me. "Open the door, Hunter." Hunter lunged. Luke caught his wrist, twisted, bone snapped. The knife clattered across marble. Hunter dropped to the floor screaming. Not from pain, but from irrelevance. The door burst open. Agents rushed in. Hunter sobbed as they restrained him. The kingdom was gone. The heirs were nothing. 3 weeks have passed. My father was denied bail, his assets frozen, his empire liquidated. Hunter took a plea, no inheritance, just consequences. Nobody talks about what happens after justice, after the sirens fade, after the headlines move on, after the monster is gone, and you're left alone with yourself. That's the part that almost broke me. This morning, Newport smells like salt and fresh coffee, no cameras, no chaos, just ocean air and quiet. I'm sitting on the porch of the cottage, my cottage, the one my father called worthless, the one he tried to steal, the one my grandfather protected with silence and time. The roof is fixed now. The ivy's been cleared. The window's finally open. For the first time in my life, nothing feels like it's about to explode. I used to think peace would feel loud. Like fireworks. Like victory. But it doesn't. It feels like breathing without flinching. Like setting a cup down without bracing for it to be thrown back at you. I sit on the porch steps and run my fingers over the old wood. This is where Grandpa Samuel used to sit with me when I was little. He never talked bad about my father. Never warned me. He just listened. When I was scared, he didn't fix it. He made space for it. That was his gift. And now I understand why he didn't give me the money directly. Money would have been taken. This required patience and trust. Luke comes out with 2 mugs of coffee. He sits beside me without saying a word. That's love, not speeches, not promises. Presence. The trust transfer finalized this morning, he says finally. It's all yours, $12 million. Sitting somewhere in numbers and accounts. Waiting. What do you want to do with it? He asks. I look at the ocean. The money doesn't feel like power, it feels like insulation. Like something between me and fear. Nothing, I say. Luke raises an eyebrow. I'm still a nurse. I continue. I still work nights. I still help people on their worst days. The money doesn't change who I am. It just makes sure no one can ever own me again. That afternoon, I light a small fire pit on the porch. I take out one final document, the affidavit. The paper that carried 20 years of fear. I strike a match. The flame catches, and I watch it burn. Not in anger, in relief. I used to think family was blood, obligation, endurance, survival. I was wrong. Family is who stands with you when the vault opens and doesn't ask to take what's inside. Nobody warns you about this part. They tell you revenge feels good. They tell you justice feels clean. They don't tell you what it costs to finally stop surviving and start existing. For weeks after everything ended, I couldn't sleep, not because I was afraid. Because my body didn't know what to do without fear. When you grow up walking on glass, silence feels suspicious. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., convinced I'd forgotten something. Missed something. That somehow, some way he'd still find me. Trauma doesn't leave just because the threat is gone. It waits. At the hospital, I caught myself flinching when doctors raised their voices. I apologized too much. Still asked permission for things I didn't need permission for. Winning didn't erase the wiring. It just exposed it. One night, a patient grabbed my wrist during a code. His pulse was fading. His eyes were terrified. "Don't leave me," he whispered. And something cracked open inside my chest. Because I realized something in that moment. I wasn't invisible anymore. I never had been. I had just been trained to believe I was. I started therapy. Not because I was broken. But because I deserved to understand myself without pain translating everything. I learned words for things I thought were just personality traits. Hypervigilance, fawning, emotional minimization, survival skills mistaken for character. Money didn't heal that. Time did, choice did, safety did. The money just made it possible to choose those things without asking anyone's permission. I stopped answering calls I didn't want to answer. Stopped explaining my boundaries. Stopped shrinking in rooms built by men who confuse volume with authority. The world didn't end. In fact, it got quieter. Justice didn't make me whole. But it made space. And in that space, I started meeting myself for the first time. Not as a daughter. Not as a victim. But as a woman who survived. And didn't turn cruel in the process. Here's the truth nobody prepares you for. Closure doesn't always sound like, "I'm sorry." Sometimes it sounds like silence. And that silence is louder than any apology could ever be. I never visited my father in jail. People asked why. Friends. Distant relatives crawling out of the woodwork now that the story had gone public. Don't you want answers? Don't you want to hear what he has to say? No. Because I already knew. Men like him don't apologize. They negotiate. They rewrite history. They search for angles. They try to reclaim control, even from a concrete cell. Seeing him wouldn't give me peace. It would give him relevance, and he lost the right to that. A letter came instead. Handwritten. Careful penmanship. The envelope sat unopened on my kitchen counter for 3 days. I already knew what it contained. Not remorse. Just blame wearing a better suit. On the 4th day I burned it. Still sealed. That was my answer. For the first time, I understood something deeply freeing. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you take, when you stop needing them to change. Hunter tried to call. Once, I let it go to voicemail. I listened later. His voice was small, not angry, not threatening, just empty. He said my name like he was trying to remember who I was. I didn't call back. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. I didn't need them to suffer. I needed the cycle to end. That was the real victory. Not prison. Not headlines. Freedom. One afternoon I visited the cemetery where Grandpa Samuel was buried. No speech. No tears. Just a soft thank you. For believing in the version of me I hadn't met yet. For planting a future that required patience instead of permission. I realized something standing there. He didn't save me with money. He saved me with timing. He waited until I was strong enough to hold it. Some stories end with forgiveness. This one ends with peace. And peace is louder than revenge. If you've stayed with me this long, you already know this story was never really about $12 million. It was about something far more dangerous. Choice. I keep the passbook now in a small wooden box, not in a safe, not in a vault, on a shelf. The pages are still warped, still stained with champagne. I never fix them. Because damage doesn't erase value. It proves survival. My father thought money made him powerful. He was wrong. Money just reveals who you already are. When he had it, he used it to dominate. When he lost it, he begged for control. When I received it, I chose insulation, not influence. The trust grows quietly now. No headlines, no galas. Part of it funds scholarships for trauma nurses, the ones who work in silence, who hold hands in the dark, who keep people alive while being told they're replaceable. I never put my name on the buildings. I put it in the systems. If you're listening to this and thinking, I see myself in her, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me sooner. You're not weak. You were trained to survive, and survival is not a flaw. You don't need revenge to win. You need boundaries. You don't need permission to leave. You need clarity. And you don't need to become cruel to become free. Some mornings, I sit on the porch of the cottage and watch the tide roll in. No fear, no waiting for the next explosion. Just waves doing what waves do. Leaving, returning, unbothered. The passbook should have stayed buried. That's what my father thought. But some things are buried, so they can be found at the exact moment they're needed. And when they are, they don't just change your future, they return your name to you. I'm Alyssa. And this time, I didn't disappear.